So this is literally going to be the hardest video that I have ever filmed. I'm really going to try and keep it together and tell you guys as much as I can, the best way I can, and not leaving any information out. A lot of you guys, if you do follow me on Instagram, you would know that I was pregnant and I did have my little girl at 26 weeks. On my YouTube family, I don't think I even announced it because I only announced my pregnancy when I was 19 weeks pregnant, and that was in April 2019.
Oh my god!
Ready?
Ready?
Ready? Casey! Jump in, Casey!
I feel like I need to sit down and just go from A to B, what happened. I feel like this is going to be good therapy for me. I haven't actually explained the whole story to anyone. I've told bits and pieces, and obviously my family were there experiencing what I was going through. Yeah, I know that this will help someone. I know it, and you guys will understand at the end of the video when you understand what I've been through and what's happened and what I've had to deal with and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to take you back to January 2019 when I found out I was pregnant with my third baby. I already have two boys. They are 6 and 7. I had 2 healthy pregnancies and labors with my first 2 boys. So yeah, I just obviously expected to be pregnant, go through the pregnancy and to have my baby and, you know, the rest. But that definitely was not the case. So I pretty much had just a normal pregnancy up until I was 19 weeks. I had a scan and found out I was having a girl, which was super exciting. I decided to announce that on my Instagram and Facebook. A couple of days after that, I had an appointment. This appointment didn't really go too well. I did find out that I had really high blood pressure and also a lot of protein in my urine, which is not normal in pregnancy. So I had to come back the next week because they wanted to obviously keep an eye on me. I was 21 weeks pregnant. The day before I went to my appointment, I had to have a blood test and a urine test so they could check everything that was going on. So that appointment didn't go well because in that appointment I found out, 1, that again I had extremely high blood pressure, 2, that I had increasing protein in the urine, and 3, that I had renal failure. I was only 21 weeks, so they wanted to see me again in a week, and I had to again get a blood test and do a urine test the day before that appointment. So by now I am 22 weeks pregnant. I go to my appointment. I have the doctor that I had seen the last 2 weeks, and I also had a renal doctor in the room who was asking me all these questions. It was quite overwhelming, but I didn't really think anything of it, to be honest. She was asking me like, do I get rashes? Do I have family history of this kind of stuff? All these questions that I was like, no. So the blood test had shown that again, I had renal failure. My kidneys were failing, blood pressure, the protein in the urine. And by this time I was experiencing a little bit of swelling around my body, and I just thought, okay, I'm pregnant. It's totally normal to be swollen. I didn't feel different with like my blood pressure or anything like that. I just felt pregnant. She was in the room explaining to me that I was suspected to have lupus disease. Obviously they couldn't really put 2 and 2 together because this was like kind of like the first time we were all meeting, and I didn't have past experience of renal failure or high blood pressure or anything like that. I remember in that appointment when they were asking me about, you know, lupus disease and kidney failure and all that kind of stuff, I don't think I registered what was going on. I didn't think in a million years like all this was going to happen. So again, a week later, I come back and I was 23 weeks pregnant. The same thing, blood test beforehand, and everything was worsening, and I had gained a little bit more fluid, so it was a little bit puffier around my body, but not too much. Just felt pregnant, just felt the same as I did the week before and the week before. So again, I had to go back at 24 weeks. And this is where everything changed. I walk into my appointment at 24 weeks, still had kidney failure, It was worsening. Protein was getting higher. Blood pressure was too dangerous for me to just go home and be pregnant. So they admitted me to hospital. At this time, I still didn't think I was gonna have a baby. I made it 2 more weeks in hospital before they took my daughter. So let me explain that time in hospital. 24 weeks pregnant, admitted to hospital, was being told I have kidney disease and that I was gonna have a prem baby. It was really hard, but I still didn't think I was gonna have a super prem baby. I just thought maybe I could get further. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I'm not gonna have this baby. Like, it's not time to have a baby. Yeah, it was really hard. I had 2 kids at home. You know, I've never left them before, so to go into hospital and not know like when I was getting out, but I knew I had to be there. They needed to monitor my blood pressure and everything like that. Before I actually come to hospital, I forgot to mention that when I was 20 weeks pregnant, they had put me on blood pressure medication to try and manage that at home. When I spoke to the renal doctor, I had to actually take Clexane, which is a needle that you have to stick in the top of your leg to help my blood thin, because I was now at risk of a blood clot. Forgot to mention that. I was doing that for a couple of weeks at home along with the medication. So yeah, admitted to hospital. Didn't really tell anyone. My immediate family knew and one of my close friends. That 2 weeks I was in hospital was the worst time of my life. Like, I never ever experienced the feeling that I did being in hospital at 24 weeks pregnant, being told that I have kidney disease and being told that I'm gonna have a prem baby. I went into hospital, I had a little bit of fluid on me and I was about 75 kilos, I think. Within that 2 weeks in hospital, I was 100 kilos. I was massive. Each day just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was so swollen. I had all this fluid around my body. I could barely open my eyes. I could barely walk by the end of it. My body was just experiencing like the worst of the worst, but I was really trying to mentally and physically keep going so I didn't have to have my daughter so early. My renal function was getting worse and worse. My blood pressure was getting higher and higher and my protein was getting higher and higher. So I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. I was getting so many blood tests. Every single day I would be getting blood tests. They wanted to check my renal function. I was getting OBS every couple of hours, which is normal in hospital. I just couldn't digest the information being in hospital. I couldn't accept it. That was a big thing for me, is like accepting it. At the time I was admitted, I was 27 and I actually had my birthday in hospital. I was fit and healthy. Like, I didn't understand, like, I'm fit and healthy. I've carried 2 babies before. Why can I not carry my daughter? Like, I just didn't understand. It was nothing I could do. I couldn't fix anything. They did tell me when I was in hospital that they needed to do a kidney biopsy and they couldn't do that because I was pregnant. I remember being in hospital and not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to open the blinds, waking up every day just thinking like, this wasn't a dream. Like, I'm here, and I just didn't understand why or how. I'm fit, I'm healthy, and there's people standing outside of the hospital pregnant, smoking, and they can have healthy babies and they can go full term. And I had so much running through my head, like, there's people that are on drugs and that drink and they have full term babies, and I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, that was hard to accept, really hard to accept. I think that's what took so long for me to accept. I had the NICU doctors come down and explain to me the risk of having super prem babies. I literally could not even have a conversation with anyone that whole time I was in hospital without crying the first 5 seconds. Like, I was that emotional and just that much in a dark place that I couldn't have a conversation with anyone. I would just cry. Every time the doctor would come in, the nurses would come in, I spoke to my family, like, I would just cry. I remember the NICU doctors come down and explain to me what the risks were of having a prem baby. That was heartbreaking, and one of the nurses kind of encouraged me to go up to the NICU where all prem babies go, the intensive care unit, and just have a look around, and I refused to go. And then the next day I decided that I needed to go because I needed to prepare myself for what was going to happen. So I remember going around and having a look, and then I walked out of the NICU and leaned against the, I think this is the point where I was like, oh my god, this is happening. Like, I'm having a prem baby. Like, there's no getting out of this. I have no control over my body. None. I leaned up against the wall and like literally felt my heart break. That was probably the hardest moment in hospital. Standing in the corridor, leaning up against the wall, just like feeling my heart breaking. Because I knew she was going to be in there. I knew this was all like happening and I had to deal with it. And it was just so hard. So I ended up lasting 2 weeks in hospital, and then on the 3rd of June, 3 days after my birthday, my doctor come in and sat on the bed and told me that her and the renal doctors who they were working together have decided to deliver me. It was just way too unsafe for me to be pregnant anymore. The morning she come in, like I literally had no energy. I had no strength anymore. Like my body was just experiencing something that it's never experienced before, and my brain, like mentally, physically, I was just done. I was so sick, and I obviously had a cesarean because you can't naturally give birth at 26 weeks. So first cesarean, I remember I was fine going up to theatre. It wasn't until they literally pulled me onto the theatre table that I remember looking up, and there was so many doctors in the room. So many doctors because she was super prem. There was like the normal doctors and nurses for the cesarean, and then there was like all the baby doctors that were going to take her away. And because my blood pressure was too high, they had to knock me out, and Eric wasn't allowed in the room just in case something happened to me or the baby, and then I was knocked out. Like I was so scared that like I'm kind of glad they knocked me out. So I remember laying there just crying, and they put the mask on, and I kept telling myself if I close my eyes, like that's it, I'm obviously gonna go to sleep. So I was trying so hard to keep my eyes open, and I just felt like I was suffocating, and then the next minute I woke up in recovery. I remember waking up and just being in like literally so much pain that it was unbearable. And I remember the nurse saying, "Are you in pain? Do you need more morphine?" And she just kept giving me more morphine until I was out of pain. And then Eric was the only one that had seen her. That's just the rules in the hospital. I remember seeing Eric and I was like, oh my god, like, is she okay? Is she okay? He's like, yeah, like she's so beautiful.